In this video, I'm going to talk about the timeline, everything from the basics to some best practices to stay organized. I'm also going to share some tips to help you speed up your video editing and make your editing life much easier. Let's get into it. We're only 1 week away from the official release of the brand new Camtasia 2024, due to be released on June 4th. I'll be hosting a virtual unboxing of the new version on that day in a live stream at 1 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday, June 4th. If you want to learn all about the new features and see me share my screen and demonstrate them, be sure to stop by. You don't have to be a channel member or be subscribed to my channel to join. My live streams are open to anyone. You can even ask questions during the live stream and I'll answer them live. I actually host live streams every Tuesday at 1 p.m., so I invite you to join me tomorrow as well, even if you just want to see how it all works. I've already got tomorrow's live stream set up and waiting on my channel, so if you click my channel name below, Rob the Maritimer, then on my channel page under upcoming live streams, click the Notify Me button next to the live stream, and you'll be notified just as I'm going live. I hope to see you there. Now back to this video. So the sample project you're looking at here is actually the project file for the video you're watching now. So what I did is I recorded the intro, stopped recording, and then I edited the intro, and then I started recording again, which is what you're watching now. This is the intro that you just watched, if that makes sense. So let's take a look at it. The Camtasia software, if you look at it on a whole, there are three main areas, actually four, but you've got the timeline, which we're going to talk in detail about in this video. That's this area all down here at the bottom. You've then got the canvas area up here, and then you've got your media bin and all your effects up here. The fourth area would be the properties area over here. If you have something selected in here, some property options would open up there, okay? Now, when you're editing a video, there are two things you have to consider. You have to consider where things are going to be placed in the video. Like let's say you want a logo in the middle, or maybe you want the logo down in the bottom corner. Okay, that's placing things in different locations in the video. To edit those types of things and where you want things located, you do that editing up here in the canvas. Okay, down here in the timeline, that's where you edit things in terms of when you want them to be displayed in your video. For example, if I highlight this right here, this is some text, timeline, and I've got it starting here at this point in the timeline, okay? And if we look up here, we can see it's at 1 second and 21 frames into the beginning of the video. And then it stays on screen until here at the end at 5 seconds. Okay, so you use the timeline to define when things occur and for how long in the video. Whereas the canvas, I've decided that I wanted this located here towards the bottom. I do that editing in the canvas. Okay, so that's the difference, and you have to make a video, you have to edit in both places. Everything that you put in the timeline, you're going to want to place where you want it in the canvas as well. So let's get into the timeline. The timeline is made up of several tracks, okay, and the tracks are denoted over here on the left. We see track 1, track 2, and so on, okay, and you can use the mouse wheel to scroll up and down, and you can have I believe you can have as many tracks as you want. I've never run out, and I've had probably close to 20 tracks sometimes in some videos. But to keep things organized, what I typically do is, and this is a difference between Camtasia and some other video editors. In Camtasia, you can put any type of media on any track, okay? Media meaning, you know, video is a media, or call-outs like text, or sound effects, or audio like voiceovers, or audio like background music. Those are all the sorts of things or media that you can put in the timeline. And what I like to do is I like to put the background music in the lowest track on the timeline, at the bottom of the timeline, and then the next one up is where I usually put the voiceover in track 2, and then the video above that. And then once you go above that, for me, it really depends on what I'm doing. So the difference between Camtasia and a lot of other video editors is you can put any type of media on any track. So I don't have to put the music or the voiceover at the bottom. I could put them at the top if I like. Whereas some other video editors, typically what I've seen most of the time is there would be a horizontal line below which all of the audio components would go, and above the line all of the video or visual components would go. But you're not constrained to that in Camtasia. For example, I have the background music here, and I have the video or audio, sorry, the voiceover here. Then I have the video, okay? And then up here I have some sound effects. So that's audio, and this is sound effects here as well, okay? In other programs, that would have to be down here with the other audio, okay? But what I typically like to do, because I usually have to line up my sound effects with visual components, I typically keep them close to those visual components. So for example, if I just play here so you can see what this sound effect does. In this video, I'm gonna, okay, it's like a whoosh in as I zoom in, okay? And then this here is also a sound effect for when this timeline text comes on screen, and this is a sound effect. So let's just listen to all three. In this video, I'm going to talk about the timeline. Everything from the basics to some best practices to stay organized. Okay, so that's kind of why I like to keep my sound effects close to the visuals that they're paired with, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about navigating around the timeline a little bit. And also these tracks. If you're going to keep all of your background music, for example, on the lowest track, you can actually rename it. So all of these track numbers can be renamed. And the way you do that is you would simply double click here, or you can right click and click on rename track like this, okay? But if you don't want to go through that, I typically just double click and I will say, and then type in whatever you want. So music, enter, okay? And then let's double click track 2 and I'll call this voiceover audio. Okay, now we can't see all of that, so what you can do, you can also make this wider, make the titles of the tracks wider, and you would simply hover over here like this and click and drag. Okay, you can make them wider like that. And what you can also do with these tracks is you can reorder them fairly easily. There's kind of two ways. The way I used to do it, before I knew of the easier way, is I would create space. I would highlight everything like this, and then I would click and move everything up, okay? Like that. Let's say I wanted to put my voiceover below the music. I would do that to create a space, and then I'd click this and drag it up, and then I would click all of this, highlight all of the voiceover, and drag it down, okay? That, in effect, reordered everything. But now let me just back all of this up, and you can do that easily by going Control or Command on a Mac, Control Z, and we'll do that several times to back up. Oh, I went too far. I took out the renaming of track 2, so let's Control Shift Z to redo, and we get our name back here. Okay, so that was the old way I used to do it, the hard way, because the easier way is simply click on a track name over here and drag it to where you want it. And the other one automatically moves up. Okay, so you can reorder tracks however you want to, like that. Okay, now I should also let you know something very basic about timelines, and maybe this is obvious, but for those of you who are new to this, think of the track layers as simply layers of anything, like a cake, okay? The top layer is what you see. The next layer below is hidden by the top layer. So for example, if we put the playhead here, and wherever you put the playhead is what you're going to see in the canvas, okay? So you can click and drag this playhead wherever to see what things look like at that particular point in time. So in this location, we can see the timeline is above the video, which is here. And that's why you can see the timeline. The video actually covers the entire canvas. So if the video was above the timeline, let's click and drag this up here. Now you can't see the timeline. It's hidden by the video. Okay, let's Control Z to back that up. Now keep in mind, since there's also audio on these tracks in the timeline, they don't matter which layer they're in. They will still be heard. You can't hide audio by placing other audio on top of it. They'll simply be added together. That's why, so for instance, I have at this point in time, I have music, voice audio, and this sound effect is almost finished. But so if I play all that, you hear them all. Timeline. Everything from the basics to some best. Okay, the music and the voice and that sound effect. Now let's say you wanted to zoom in a little bit closer to see what you're doing. So this background music track, for instance, it's really hard to see down here. I've got the volume of the music quite low in the beginning until I stop speaking. And I did that by dragging this line down. That's the volume line of the audio. Okay, but if I wanted to see this a little clearer, I would like to make this track higher. I'd like to zoom it in, basically, zoom in the height. So to do that, I can click here and drag this up. That makes that track larger. That's as high as I can go here on a Mac. On a PC, I believe you can go higher. I'm not sure why, but I'm doing this on a Mac. So that's actually the upper limit. And then you can more easily see, to drag and change the audio levels and the audio points like this. Another way I can adjust the track height is I can right click on the track name and click this minimize button down here. I've already got it maximized, so that's why that's not an option. But if I click minimize, that makes that track as small as it possibly can be. Okay? If I right click again, I can see maximize as an option. Okay? If I drag this into the middle somewhere, like this, and right click, I can minimize or maximize. Okay, let's maximize that. Something else you can do to adjust the track height is up here, there's a little magnifying glass and an up arrow and a down arrow, and then this icon beside it. I can click on that and scroll up or down. That adjusts all of the track heights in one motion. Okay, so that's something else you can do. And we can resize like this, and then bring this up a little bit like that. I generally like to see as much of the timeline as I possibly can while I'm editing. Unless I really have to get into a certain track, then I might make that track a little larger. Now let's take a look at these three icons by the track name. So as you can see, every track has three icons: a little lock, a little magnet, and an eyeball. Okay, and you don't always see them. So right now I can see all three, but if I made the tracks smaller, see, the magnets disappeared, and then the other ones, the lockbox disappeared as well, right? So you only see them all when the tracks are large enough, but you still have access to all of them. Let me show you what they do. The eyeball one will hide a track. So if I click on this, that hides everything on this track. And when I say hide, if it's a visual element, like my logo here, that won't be shown. Okay, if it's an audio element like this sound effect, it won't be heard. Okay, so if I play this, about the timeline, everything, that sound effect is not there. I can also click to hide this one, then that timeline visual won't show up. About the timeline, everything. Okay, so that's what the first one does. Now, if you hold down the Option key or Alt on a PC while you're clicking that, let's do that now. Hold down Option and then click this. That's how you solo a track. So basically it hides all other tracks except the one that you clicked on. And you can solo more than one track. Then it's not really solo, but you get the point. See, it's denoted by a green box now around that eyeball. If I hold down Option and click on another one that I also want to see, okay, that'll bring that one back. Okay, and then I can play it all the way through. And those tracks that are hidden won't be seen or heard. Okay, to reverse that, simply hold the Option key while you're clicking these again, and that turns everything back on. Okay, of course, another way to do that is you can simply, one by one, hide all the tracks that you don't want to see or hear. Now, why might you want to do this? Let's say I wanted to do some editing on my background music, but I can't really hear it very well down here on the first track because the volume is low with respect to the volume of my voice. So maybe I want to hide my voice and I just want to hear the background music and the sound effects. I can do it this way. Okay, so that might be one reason. And then at the same time, if I just want to edit the audio, okay, maybe I just want to edit the voiceover here, I can just solo that track, hold down the Option key and click on here, and then I can just hear the audio. I'm going to talk about the time. Okay, let's undo that. The next one is the magnet icon, and that one's a little bit, I actually don't use this very much just because of the way I edit. You may have a different way that you prefer to edit, and that's why there are so many different tools you can use in Camtasia. The best tools to use are the ones that work best for your workflow, if that makes sense. So I'm just kind of showing you my workflow. And maybe if you don't have a workflow that you're happy with yet, maybe you want to try to adopt some of mine. I've been doing it this way for a long time, and it's just the way I like to do things. So I don't typically use this, but if I wanted to, what the magnet icon does when I click it, it snaps everything that's on that timeline all the way back to the beginning and removes all spaces, okay? Now, a couple reasons why I might not have wanted to do that. In this case, it brought this logo out of the intro section here. I didn't want that. And also I didn't want this timeline to move. It might be a good thing to use if you're editing video and audio, like down here, and removing any mistakes that you made in your video. Okay, if you wanted to remove all the mistakes, you could cut them all out and then wait to the beginning and then use the magnet icon to snap it all tight. So, and you can tell that the magnet is activated, number one, by it being highlighted here in the track. But again, maybe you don't see it there. Like if the tracks are smaller, it disappears, you can't see it. In which case, simply look at the track and you can see these black and gray arrows pointing back to the beginning of the timeline. That's how you can tell that it's on. So if I just turn this off now, okay, it stayed snapped back to the beginning, okay? So I don't want that. I'm gonna go Control Z to back that up, and then Control Z again to back up the snapping that I did. Okay, the next icon is the lock icon, and all that does is it protects anything on a given track. So let's say I don't want to change anything about my voiceover or my video. Let's say I've got them edited, I've got them exactly where I want them. Okay, so I clicked the wrong thing here. I'm going to click the lock box. So click that and click the lock here. So now whatever edits I do anywhere else, these tracks will not be affected. So for example, if I tried to select everything and I pressed the S key, which is to split, okay, also you could hit the scissors icon up here, does the same thing. Okay, if I do that, see how it's split here, here, and here, but this did not get split because I have those tracks locked. Okay, that's what the lock icon does. Now let me back this up and back that up, back to here. Something else I want to show you is when you copy and paste anything on your timeline. So let's hover over here. Let's say this, for whatever reason, I wanted to make a copy of this, okay? If I go Control D, that's for duplicate. So Control or Command on a Mac, D. When you duplicate something, it creates another copy directly above it, lined up in the same part of the timeline, okay? This might not have been a good example. Let me back this up. Let's say I wanted to duplicate this one, this sound effect. Control D puts it, another copy of it directly above, and if there was something in the way, it moves everything up, creates a new track, and puts it there. Okay, that's what duplicate does. Let me back this up. Let's say I wanted to create a duplicate copy of this, but I did not want to mess around with the timeline. A better way to do it would be to highlight it, go Control or Command C to copy, and then Control or Command V to paste. When you do that, whenever you paste something, it's going to get pasted at the location of your playhead, okay? So if I did want it to be pasted exactly where this one was, the first one was, I would not paste it there. I can double click this. If I double click anything on the timeline, the playhead will go to the beginning of it. So like this, okay? It's at the very beginning. Now I can go Control C, Control V, and it pasted a new copy directly above it. Not directly above it. It doesn't create a new track. It just puts it on the next available track above it. So it had to go up 3 tracks to find room to paste it. Okay? Let me Control Z to back that up. Just remember, if ever you do something and you didn't get the result that you were hoping, Control Z is your friend. The undo shortcut. I use it all the time. You can also undo over here by using this arrow. That's the undo and that's the redo button. But my little finger is always on that control or command button. Control Z or Control Shift Z is redo. So now let's say we wanted to see more or less of the timeline. And I'm talking about zooming in or out of the scale. Okay, so we're not talking about track heights now. I'm talking about the scale along the horizontal axis. So right now we can see up here, there's this ruler that goes all the way across the top, and there's some times here. So here it says 5 seconds, 10, 15, 20, and so on. I can change that scale, and there's several different ways to do that. So this icon here I use quite a bit. It's a magnifying glass for the horizontal scale. Remember, this one over here is a magnifying glass for the vertical scale, the height of the tracks. This is for the horizontal scale. If you click on this, okay, it will show everything in the timeline. It basically maximizes the scale so that everything fits perfectly. Okay, well, maybe I didn't want that. If I want to adjust it, either see more of it or less of it, change the scale, just click and drag this icon here. Okay, you can click and drag it. You can go in as far as you want. Oh, that's as far as you can go in. All right, and then you can go a long way. That's an hour. That's an hour 40. It looks like that's as far as you can go. I've never made a video that long. Come close. Okay, so that's how you adjust the scale. That's the way I do it. There is also a shortcut to do it, and that shortcut is to hold the Control on Windows or Command on Mac. Hold that down, hover over the timeline here, and just use your mouse wheel. So while you're holding Control or Command down, you can move your mouse wheel up or down. Okay? Or if you didn't want to use your mouse and you want to use the keyboard, then you would hold Control and Shift and use the plus or the minus. Okay? It just kind of steps it in or out. Again, I never use that. The mouse wheel option, if I can remember, sometimes I'll use that, but more often than not, I typically just go up here. I just find it easier. But again, whatever works for you. Now, generally, if you need a new track, just by adding something to the timeline, we'll create that new track for you. So let's say over here, let's put the playhead here. Let's say I Control C to copy this logo and then Control V to paste it. Oh, actually it went to the bottom. And remember why? It starts at the bottom. It looks for the first available amount of room to put it. So since there was nothing down on track 1, that's where it went. Okay, but let's say I wanted that to go above. I can simply click and drag it up here. And as I drag up, a new track is created for it, track 10. Okay, let's Control D to duplicate that. Another track was created automatically, track 11. Okay, that happens automatic. If you ever wanted to add a track just on your own, like you want to, maybe you're setting up and you know how many tracks you want, you can simply come over here and with any of the tracks or wherever you want to add one, right click and then click Insert Track. You can insert a track above or below. Let's click below here. That inserted a track below track 11, which is now the new track 11. Okay, and that was moved up to track 12. You can also right click and remove a track. Now I right click this track and there's nothing on it, so no problem, it just removed it. Let me Control Z to back that up. If I right click this one, track 10, I have something on it. If I right click and click remove track, I get a warning. Track contains media. So that's a nice built-in safety that it's warning you, you're about to delete something off your track. Are you sure you wanted to do that? So I like that. So let's just cancel out of that. Okay. Some other things you can do when you right click over here. So you can insert a track above or below. You can move tracks. I never use that because I simply click and drag tracks if I want to move them. You can rename a track from in here, this menu. Again, all you have to do is double click the track to rename it. You can turn track off, or you can just click that eyeball. Enable solo track, lock track, enable magnetic track. All these things you can do just by using the icons. And minimize and maximize. One other thing here that I didn't show you yet, you can detach the timeline. Okay. Now what happens when you do that? Let me just click this. Timeline's gone. You can't see it, but it actually moved up to my other monitor. I can click and drag it back down. What happens is it detaches it from your canvas into another window. It's still kind of attached, as you can see, right? But this is very handy if you have a super large timeline and you want to be able to see more of it. You can put your timeline on a different monitor. If you have a 2-monitor setup, you could be editing the canvas on one monitor and have your timeline on a completely different monitor. So that can be super handy. If you want to reattach it, simply right-click and attach timeline, or let's do it another way. Over here, this little icon here is a shortcut icon, attach timeline. Okay, now it's reattached. Or you can detach it, right? So same, that icon is like a toggle icon. So let's reattach it over here. So one thing to keep in mind, there are a ton of available shortcuts in Camtasia, and the way you find them is you go up here to Camtasia 2023 on a Mac. I believe you go to File or Edit and then Preferences on a PC. Again, I'm not sure why the difference, but that's how you find the shortcuts. In here, it's in Settings, okay? And then Shortcuts, this icon over here. And look at all these shortcuts. There are so many of them. There may be other ones that you would prefer to use. And if so, another nice hack, if you've ever seen one of my live streams, you'll notice that I use a Stream Deck to facilitate the live streams for switching camera angles and screens and so on. But what you can do, you can actually map any of these shortcuts to buttons on a Stream Deck. So if you find that easier, I haven't done that because I have my Stream Deck over here on the right side of me, and that's where my mouse is. So it would just be cumbersome to do those two things with one. I use my left hand on my keyboard with shortcuts when I edit. But something I could do, and I may try this, if I move my Stream Deck over to the left side, then I could have, I could be on the keyboard, but also I may have a specific button. So instead of like this one here, for instance, extend selection to next marker, is Shift, Control, and closed square bracket. So that's 3 things. I may not remember to do all that. So instead I can just create a button on my Stream Deck, one press, and it'll do that action. So keep that in mind, a nice little hack. And if you don't have a Stream Deck, I'll leave a link in the description below as to where you can get one. But I find it super handy. It comes in 3 different sizes. I have the large one, I believe, the XL. Super handy. So that's it with the timeline. If you have any questions, let me know. But I think we'll just leave it for there. Again, there's a lot more you could do with it, but that should get you started, get you a little more familiar with the timeline. Do you want more tips like this? Let me know in the comments below. Or come join me on Tuesdays in my live stream. I live stream every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern here on YouTube, sharing my screen and doing how-to tutorials. I show you how I make my videos and I answer any questions you have live. So if you're looking to level up your videos, join me on Tuesdays. I'm Rob and I'll see you in the next video or in a live stream. I'll see you soon.